I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As the first speaker of opposition, I stand strongly against the motion to require political candidates passing a competency test in order to run for the office. But first, four weaknesses in the proposition's argument. 1. The proposition assumes that a test can fairly and objectively measure political competence, that it can sort out politicians who don't know how to run a society, leading for them to be able to pick for politicians who at least has the knowledge to be able to run a functional society. But political competence is not just about fact, science, or knowledge. It values empathy, vision, and heart-to-heart understanding to the people you are supposed to lead in the near future. By doing this policy, it opens the door to manipulation, censorship, or even silencing voices from society. Who defines what competent? A central authority and valuable community from the inside of the system? The lack of point of view will burden the system itself because of the limited, often inflexible way of choosing political candidates. 2. The proposition said that they avoid things like extreme rhetoric and policy that is only created to garner attention from the society that is not backed up by science or stability. But we must say that this is incorrect and cause more harm than good, because in a democracy system that gives power to the people to choose a leader, for example, the necessary thing is to give power to those people to choose their leader. And the moment that this tax policy is introduced as a barrier, we shift power away from the public and into the hands of the test maker that gatekeep the crowd or society to choose freely. That destroys the very heart of a democratic representation and the transplantation beneath the system. 3. The government's interpretation of social contract is flawed, because the true social contract in democracy is not about handing power to a limited side of the house, but it's about empowering citizens to choose their leader. If we start filtering candidates with an exam, we break the contract, because it's like telling voters that they are not smart enough to judge competence for your government when they are the one actually getting the risks and consequences of being led by their chosen leaders. 4. Propositions say that the system is fluctuative because in today some people think that it is not unnecessary for the government to act for the betterment of their life, leading to them not participating or vote for politicians. But in reality, people doesn't stop voting because candidates are unqualified, but because they feel disconnected from politics, because the system doesn't listen and tear the trust of the public, not because someone failed a quiz. Instead of re-engaging the public, this policy will only increase public distrust. It makes the system seem more elitist and distant. That is why, yes, we agree that political quality is important, but the proposition's way of doing it is wrong, and we are not okay with it. We have a better solution that doesn't hurt democracy or setting aside public's opinion. Having addressed major flaws in the government, we are moving on to our counter-proposal. But first, we'd like to acknowledge the problem. We understand the proposition's concern that unqualified leader can harm and will increase the potential of them not doing the best for the society. Meanwhile, the society expects them to do their best, leading to broken trust and harming governance system. However, filtering candidates through standardized competency tests in order to run for the office is not the right choice, causing exclusionary practice in society. Instead, we as opposition believes in a solution that empowers voters rather than restricting candidates. We propose investing in voter education and public political literacy programs, such as first, civic education in schools and proper socialization for electing candidates, and second, free public resources on candidates' backgrounds, and third, transparent public debates and town halls. This way, we can equip the voters to judge for themselves. If the mechanization can be done correctly, it can also prevent public from having bad mindset in choosing, for example, an extremist leader, or only choosing someone because of the big controversy they make, because a proper education, socialization, and transparency will surely lead them to properly understand the rules and regulation and how to choose for a good leader, by also integrating thoughts of future benefits and consequences, instead of only restricting them by saying, "You're not smart enough to decide for yourself." In this debate, the burden of proof lies within the government to show us that this policy in the motion is not only beneficial but also necessary and implementable, that the test is fair and free from bias, that it leads to better leadership outcomes, that no other solution works better, and if they fail to justify, the motion should fall. Moving on to our substantive arguments. First, it violates democratic equality. Democracy means every citizen, regardless of race, class, economic state, has the equal right to run for the office. By introducing the policy system of a test, it sets a barrier that filters out underprivileged but potentially great leaders, especially coming from rural areas. There are also potential of more high privileged people aiming to become a politician being able to get through the way easier because they can afford tutoring from proper mentors to do the test. But the people with that come from underprivileged world can, and this leads to government that get created of the elite, by the elite, and for the elite, and that betrays the very own essence of democracy and the rights for people, no matter where they came from. Leadership is not only about theory, but it's about vision, empathy, and lived experience. And second, the test competency is subjective and unmeasurable. Really, what does it mean to be politically competent anyway? Is it being good at diplomacy or knowing the constitution? Having a certain ideology that remains unique in some people's eyes? There is zero universal definition of political competency. If a certain committee writes the test and decides the rules, they will design it based on their worldview, and this can be used to exclude opposition voice or activists from the grassroots movement or marginalized group. But leadership qualities like courage, communication, and compassion cannot be measured on a paper test. If you ask someone if they're good at leadership and they answer yes in the paper, but you never truly witness how they work in society and how they would connect to their subordinate, will you truly believe them without a better proof? The test falsely narrows down what it means to lead, cutting many important parts of the views, leading to many great leaders being shoved in a box that they can't fit. And third, the real solution actually lies in the voters' empowerment. The real problems are not the candidates, but the voters instead. Or specifically, their limited knowledge to access political knowledge. Doing our mechanism by educating the public about their rights, ideologies, and government responsibilities, we encourage voters' competence, which forces politicians to raise their standards and performance in order to earn more trust. The urgency of this motion is that it is dangerous because once the state starts deciding who is fit to run for the office, it becomes open gate for improper authoritarianism and chance to manipulate the system from inside. The urgency is to defend open democracy now before it's too late. And our solution is justified because A. It protects equal political rights by prioritizing mass voices, and B. Target the root cause of the problem, which is uneducated or uninformed voters, and C. Avoids power abuse through gatekeeping. And it's effective and gives more good than harm because first, political education creates long-term effects, second, civic management increases voters' accountability, and third, inclusive democracy creates way more responsive leaders. The conclusion of this debate is that when the proposition desires to filter the people, we as opposition wants to power the people who has the very right to choose who they want to be led by for years to come. Propositions choose restriction, but we choose inclusivity and education by not getting through the problem by taking the shortcut and shut people's voices. But we fight for democracy and the voices that always matter. For all these reasons, I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.